The early 1960s weren't just changing music and fashion, they were reinventing cinema. Studios went bigger, louder, bolder, and unapologetically stylish. Beach culture exploded onto screens, while Cold War paranoia simmered beneath tuxedos. Musicals dazzled with spectacle, satire turned nuclear fear into dark comedy, and British cool conquered Hollywood. This was the era of spies, rebels, dreamers, and unforgettable soundtracks. Audiences didn't just watch movies, they experienced a cultural shift. From surfboards to secret agents, from umbrella-wielding nannies to anti-war absurdity, these are 10 iconic hits that defined the true spirit of swinging 60s cinema. A Hard Day's Night, 1964. When A Hard Day's Night burst into cinemas in 1964, it didn't just capture Beatlemania, it amplified it, stylized it, and permanently fused pop music with modern filmmaking language. Directed by Richard Lester and starring John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr as heightened versions of themselves, the film follows the band over the course of a chaotic day leading up to a televised performance. What sounds like a simple backstage comedy quickly transforms into something far more revolutionary, blending documentary-style spontaneity with sharp British wit and kinetic editing that felt radically fresh for its time. Shot in crisp black and white, the film adopts a semi-improvised tone, allowing the Beatles' natural charisma and irreverent humor to drive the narrative rather than traditional plot mechanics. Their playful rebellion against authority figures, managers, reporters, stuffy executives, perfectly mirrored the generational shift taking place across Britain and beyond. The opening sequence with the band sprinting from screaming fans became instantly iconic, setting a new standard for music-driven visual storytelling. Musically, the film is propelled by electrifying performances of songs like A Hard Day's Night, Can't Buy Me Love, and If I Fell, integrating concert energy directly into the cinematic structure rather than isolating it as mere interlude. Richard Lester's direction employs quick cuts, handheld camera work, and surreal comedic touches, techniques that would heavily influence the emerging style of music videos decades later. Beyond the music, the film cleverly satirizes celebrity culture, portraying fame as both exhilarating and absurd, with Ringo's wandering subplot offering surprisingly introspective commentary on identity and isolation amid global adoration. Critics praised its originality, humor, and innovative pacing, recognizing it as far more than a promotional vehicle for a pop band. Commercially, it was a massive success, capitalizing on the Beatles' global dominance while simultaneously elevating them into cinematic icons. In the broader landscape of 1964 cinema, surrounded by lavish musicals and spy thrillers, A Hard Day's Night felt raw, immediate, and youthful, a clear sign that the cultural center was shifting toward a faster, more self-aware generation. Its influence on editing rhythms, youth representation, and music-driven storytelling cannot be overstated. Today, the film remains one of the greatest rock and roll movies ever made, not because of elaborate drama, but because of its authenticity and energy. It captured a cultural explosion in real time, freezing the spirit of the swinging 60s at its most electric and carefree. More than a time capsule, A Hard Day's Night is a cinematic turning point, where pop culture and filmmaking collided in perfect harmony.
Zulu, 1964. Released in 1964, Zulu stands as one of the most commanding and visually striking war films of the era, dramatizing the 1879 Battle of Rorke's Drift during the Anglo-Zulu War. Directed by Cy Enfield and filmed on location in South Africa, the film portrays the desperate defense of a British outpost by roughly 150 soldiers against thousands of Zulu warriors. What elevates Zulu beyond standard war spectacle is its disciplined focus on strategy, morale, and human endurance under impossible odds. The film marked the breakout role of Michael Caine as Lieutenant Gonville Bromhead, whose stiff upper-lip aristocratic demeanor slowly evolves into hardened resolve as the siege intensifies. Opposite him, Stanley Baker delivers a grounded and pragmatic performance as Lieutenant John Chard, creating a dynamic leadership contrast that anchors the narrative. Unlike many war films that demonize the opposing force, Zulan presents the Zulu warriors with dignity and formidable presence, showcasing their tactical precision and courage rather than reducing them to faceless antagonists. The large-scale battle choreography is meticulously staged, building tension through rhythmic drum beats, synchronized formations, and waves of coordinated assaults that feel both overwhelming and hauntingly beautiful. The film's widescreen cinematography captures the stark landscape, using open terrain to heighten the sense of isolation and inevitability. Rather than relying heavily on melodrama, Zulu allows suspense to accumulate gradually, emphasizing preparation, exhaustion, and the psychological strain of prolonged combat. Its pacing mirrors the siege itself, methodical, relentless, and escalating toward brutal confrontation. Upon release, the film received praise for its realism and scale, though some critics debated its historical framing and imperial perspective. Commercially, it performed strongly in the United Kingdom and helped solidify Michael Caine's screen presence as a major emerging star. In the broader context of 1964 cinema, Zulu contrasted sharply with the musical extravagance and spy glamour dominating the box office, offering instead a stoic and physically demanding depiction of warfare. Over time, it has been reassessed not only as a gripping action epic, but also as a complex portrayal of colonial-era conflict, reflecting both heroism and the moral ambiguity of empire. Its iconic final sequence, with British soldiers singing Men of Harlech in defiant unity, remains one of the most stirring moments in classic war cinema. Zulu endures because it balances spectacle with discipline, presenting courage not as flashy heroics, but as steady resistance in the face of overwhelming force. It captures a moment when old-world military tradition collided with brutal reality, making it one of the defining battle epics of the Swinging Sixties era.
Beach Party, 1963. Like a sun-soaked declaration that youth culture had officially taken over American cinema, launching an entire subgenre that studios rushed to imitate. Directed by William Asher and produced by American International Pictures, the film paired Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello as the clean-cut faces of a new teenage wave obsessed with surfing, romance, and carefree rebellion. Unlike the heavy dramas dominating prestige filmmaking, Beach Party embraced color, music, and playful absurdity, reflecting the optimism and cultural restlessness of early 60s America. The story centers on a group of college students vacationing at the beach, where romantic misunderstandings, generational clashes, and comedic chaos unfold under endless California sunshine. What makes the film historically important is not its plot complexity, but its cultural timing. It capitalized on the exploding popularity of surf music and the growing independence of teenage audiences who wanted entertainment tailored specifically to them. The film's vibrant aesthetic, energetic dance numbers, and lighthearted tone created a formula that proved wildly profitable, leading to multiple sequels and establishing the Beach Party brand almost overnight. Frankie Avalon brought smooth charisma and pop idol charm, while Annette Funicello balanced innocence with subtle defiance, creating a screen chemistry that defined teen romance for the era. Supporting performances, including comedic turns from Bob Cummings and anthropology satire woven into the script, added layers of humor that gently mocked adult attempts to study youth behavior. Musically, the film tapped into the surf rock craze, embedding the soundtrack deeply into its identity and helping solidify the connection between cinema and contemporary pop culture. Critics at the time did not treat Beach Party as serious art, yet its commercial success told a different story. It understood its audience perfectly. The production's modest budget contrasted sharply with its box office return, proving that youth-oriented films could compete financially with larger studio projects. Beyond its breezy exterior, the film subtly reflects a generational shift, portraying teenagers not as delinquents, but as energetic individuals forging their own social codes. In the broader landscape of 1963 cinema, Beach Party represented Hollywood's awakening to the power of youth-driven storytelling. Today, it stands as a vibrant time capsule of early 60s fashion, slang, music, and optimism, a colorful reminder that sometimes cultural impact is measured not in awards, but in influence and imitation. It may not carry dramatic weight, but its legacy in shaping teen entertainment is undeniable.
Muscle Beach Party, 1964. Released just 1 year after Beach Party proved that youth-driven surf films could dominate the box office, Muscle Beach Party doubled down on the formula while amplifying spectacle, satire, and self-awareness. Directed once again by William Asher and starring Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello, the film embraces its own absurdity with greater confidence, transforming the sun-soaked California coastline into a comedic battleground of egos, romance, and exaggerated masculinity. This time, the carefree beach atmosphere is disrupted by the arrival of a group of European bodybuilders led by the hilariously over-the-top Flex Martian, played by Peter Lorre in one of his most unexpected comedic roles. His exaggerated accent, theatrical vanity, and obsessive pride in physical perfection inject the film with cartoonish energy that elevates it beyond simple teen romance. At its core, the story continues to revolve around Frankie and Annette's relationship, strained by jealousy and insecurity, when Annette's character begins to question Frankie's emotional maturity amid the circus of flexing muscle men and screaming fans. What makes Muscle Beach Party more culturally interesting than its predecessor is its playful commentary on celebrity worship and image obsession, themes that were quietly emerging in the 1960s as mass media and pop stardom began accelerating. The film exaggerates body culture to absurd extremes, poking fun at the idea of physical dominance while still delivering the expected musical numbers and beachside flirtations. The colorful production design remains central to its appeal, filled with bright swimwear, exaggerated stage performances, and energetic choreography that captures the optimism of early 1960s youth culture. Frankie Avalon maintains his clean-cut charm, but the film allows him to show a slightly more flawed and insecure side, giving the romance a bit more tension. Annette Funicello continues to balance sweetness with independence, subtly reflecting changing attitudes toward female agency within teenage storytelling. Musically, the film leans heavily into surf rock and pop-infused dance numbers, further cementing the beach party genre's identity as a fusion of cinema and youth music culture. While critics largely dismissed the film as lightweight entertainment, audiences embraced its escapism, helping solidify the Beach series as a reliable commercial success for American International Pictures. From an industry standpoint, Muscle Beach Party demonstrated how quickly Hollywood could manufacture and refine a trend, turning a modest concept into a recognizable franchise. In the broader 1964 cinematic landscape, which also included grand musicals and serious political dramas, this film stood unapologetically on the opposite end of the spectrum, offering colorful fantasy instead of realism. Today, it serves as both a parody and celebration of its own genre, capturing the carefree energy and exaggerated style that defined a specific slice of swinging 60s cinema. Its charm lies not in narrative depth, but in its confident embrace of fun, spectacle, and youthful access.
Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, 1964. Few films in cinematic history have managed to turn the terrifying reality of nuclear annihilation into biting, unforgettable satire quite like Dr. Strangelove. Directed by Stanley Kubrick at the height of Cold War anxiety, the film dares to ask a chilling question. What if global destruction could be triggered not by evil masterminds, but by incompetence, ego, and bureaucratic absurdity? Shot in stark black and white, the film follows a rogue U.S. Air Force general who orders a nuclear strike on the Soviet Union, setting off a chain reaction of political panic inside the Pentagon's war room. What unfolds is not a conventional thriller, but a brilliantly orchestrated farce exposing the fragile psychology of those in power. Peter Sellers delivers a legendary triple performance, portraying British RAF officer Group Captain Lionel Mandrake, the bewildered U.S. President Merkin Muffley, and the eccentric former Nazi scientist Dr. Strangelove himself. Each character represents a different facet of Cold War absurdity, from polite diplomatic restraint to paranoid nationalism to unhinged scientific ambition. George C. Scott's explosive portrayal of General Buck Turgidson adds manic energy, embodying militaristic bravado pushed to cartoonish extremes. Kubrick's direction is meticulous, balancing long, tense exchanges with sudden bursts of dark humor, particularly in the iconic war room scenes, where global annihilation is discussed like a political inconvenience. The film's screenplay, co-written by Kubrick, Terry Southern, and Peter George, crackles with sharp dialogue that transforms policy debates into comedic gold, while never losing sight of the underlying horror. Visually, the war room set became one of cinema's most iconic spaces, symbolizing both strategic control and moral blindness under harsh overhead lighting. Released just 2 years after the Cuban Missile Crisis, the film struck a nerve, daring audiences to laugh at a situation that felt frighteningly real. Critics hailed it as daring and intelligent, and it earned multiple Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture and Best Actor for Sellers. Beyond its humor, Dr. Strangelove delivers a sobering commentary on mutually assured destruction and the absurd logic of nuclear deterrence, exposing how fragile systems can spiral beyond human control. In the context of 1964 cinema, Surrounded by musicals and spy adventures, this film stood apart as a fearless political statement disguised as comedy. Today, it remains disturbingly relevant, often cited as one of the greatest films ever made and a masterclass in tonal control. Its final image, nuclear explosion set to ironic music, remains one of the most haunting endings in film history. Dr. Strangelove proves that sometimes the most powerful way to confront fear is through laughter sharpened into a weapon.
Mary Poppins, 1964. When Mary Poppins premiered in 1964, it wasn't just another Disney release. It was a cinematic event that blended live action, animation, music, and heart in a way audiences had never quite experienced before. Directed by Robert Stevenson and produced by Walt Disney himself after years of persuasion to secure the rights from author P.L. Travers, the film tells the story of the Banks family in Edwardian London, whose emotionally distant father and overwhelmed mother are transformed by the arrival of a mysterious, umbrella-flying nanny played with radiant precision by Julie Andrews. In her feature film debut, Andrews delivers a performance that is equal parts warmth, authority, whimsy, and emotional intelligence, creating one of cinema's most iconic characters. Opposite her, Dick Van Dyke plays the cheerful chimney sweep Bert, whose Cockney charm and boundless optimism add musical energy and heartfelt grounding to the story. What sets Mary Poppins apart is its seamless fusion of technical innovation and emotional storytelling. Groundbreaking visual effects allowed animated penguins to dance with live actors, while elaborate musical numbers like Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and Chim Chim Cheree became instantly timeless. The Sherman Brothers score plays a central role, turning each lesson into melody and embedding the film permanently into popular culture. Beneath its colorful fantasy lies a deeper exploration of family, responsibility, and the pressures of adulthood, particularly embodied in George Banks, whose emotional arc transforms the narrative from simple children's entertainment into a layered family drama. The film's production design recreates London with theatrical elegance, balancing realism with storybook charm. Upon release, Mary Poppins was both a critical and commercial triumph, becoming the highest-grossing film of 1964 and earning 13 Academy Award nominations, winning 5 including Best Actress for Julie Andrews and Best Original Song. Its success cemented Disney's dominance in family entertainment and proved that musicals could thrive in an era increasingly leaning toward modern realism. In the broader context of swinging 60s cinema, Mary Poppins stands as a bridge between classical Hollywood spectacle and evolving storytelling ambition, showing that fantasy could coexist with emotional authenticity. Even today, the film's themes of imagination restoring balance within fractured households feel universal. Its technical achievements, unforgettable performances, and generational appeal have ensured its legacy as one of the greatest musical films ever created. Mary Poppins is more than nostalgic comfort. It represents a moment when optimism, innovation, and heart aligned perfectly on screen, creating a cinematic experience that continues to enchant audiences decades later. My Fair Lady, 1964. If the early 60s proved anything, it was that Hollywood still knew how to go grand, and My Fair Lady stands as one of the most opulent musical spectacles of the decade. Directed by George Cukor and adapted from the Lerner and Loewe Broadway phenomenon, itself based on George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion, the film tells the story of Eliza Doolittle, a Cockney flower seller transformed into a refined lady under the rigid tutelage of phonetics professor Henry Higgins. Audrey Hepburn steps into the demanding role of Eliza, bringing elegance, vulnerability, and quiet determination to a character navigating class boundaries in Edwardian London. Rex Harrison reprises his stage role as Higgins, delivering rapid-fire, rhythmically precise dialogue songs that blur the line between speech and melody, earning him the Academy Award for Best Actor. What makes My Fair Lady extraordinary is not just its rags-to-riches premise, but its layered commentary on social hierarchy, identity, and the illusion of superiority rooted in accent and etiquette. The film's production design is nothing short of breathtaking, from the muddy Covent Garden streets to the Ascot racecourse sequence, where Cecil Beaton's costume design turns fashion into architectural spectacle. Every frame feels meticulously composed, reflecting Warner Bros.' commitment to large-scale prestige filmmaking during a period when television was threatening theatrical dominance. Musically, classics like Wouldn't It Be Loverly, I Could Have Danced All Night, and The Rain in Spain became instant standards, cementing the film's cultural footprint.
Though Hepburn's singing was famously dubbed by Marnie Nixon, her physical performance and emotional arc remain compelling, portraying Eliza's transformation not just as polish, but as internal awakening. The film's pacing allows character development to unfold gradually, emphasizing Eliza's growing independence and Higgins' stubborn emotional blindness. Upon release, My Fair Lady was a massive commercial and critical triumph, winning 8 Academy Awards including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Cinematography. It became one of 1964's defining cinematic events, representing the final peak of the traditional Hollywood musical before the industry shifted toward grittier realism later in the decade. In the broader landscape of swinging 60s cinema, My Fair Lady stands as a luxurious counterbalance to youth-driven rebellion and modern experimentation, embodying old-school craftsmanship executed at the highest level. Yet beneath its elegance lies a surprisingly sharp critique of class pretension and male ego, themes that still resonate today. Its combination of theatrical discipline, cinematic scale, and unforgettable music ensures its place as one of the most enduring musical achievements in film history. My Fair Lady is not merely a showcase of transformation, it is a monument to an era when Hollywood spectacle reached its most polished and majestic form.
Goldfinger, 1964. If there is one film that permanently cemented the James Bond formula into global pop culture, it is Goldfinger. Directed by Guy Hamilton and starring Sean Connery in his third outing as 007, the film didn't just continue the Bond series, it perfected it. Released in 1964 at the height of Cold War tension and rising British cultural influence, Goldfinger combined espionage, exotic locations, seductive glamour, high-tech gadgets, and a villain larger than life into a sleek cinematic package that audiences couldn't resist. Connery's portrayal of Bond reached full maturity here, confident, dangerous, effortlessly charismatic, yet edged with cold efficiency. Opposite him stands one of cinema's most iconic villains, Auric Goldfinger, played with calculated eccentricity by Gert Frobe, whose obsession with gold and grand-scale criminal ambition elevated the stakes beyond simple spy intrigue. The film's narrative follows Bond as he uncovers Goldfinger's elaborate plot to contaminate Fort Knox's gold reserves, a scheme designed not to steal, but to destabilize the global economy, a clever twist that reflected real-world anxieties about financial power and geopolitical strategy. One of the film's most unforgettable sequences involves Bond strapped to a table where a laser beam inches toward him, delivering the legendary line, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die," a moment that became permanently embedded in cinematic history. Shirley Bassey's powerful title song set the tone before the story even began, signaling danger and sophistication in equal measure. Technically, Goldfinger refined the Bond aesthetic with sharp editing, bold color palettes, and gadgetry supplied by Q that made technology an essential part of the franchise's identity, including the now iconic Aston Martin DB5, equipped with ejector seats and concealed weaponry. The supporting characters, including Honor Blackman as the fiercely independent Pussy Galore, added complexity and modern energy, challenging Bond in ways earlier female characters had not. Upon release, the film was a massive commercial success, igniting full-scale Bond mania around the world and establishing the series as a dominant cultural force. Critics praised its balance of humor, action, and tension, recognizing it as a polished evolution of the spy genre. In the broader context of 1964, Goldfinger symbolized the rising global influence of British filmmaking during the swinging 60s, blending style with sharp pacing and international appeal. Its impact shaped decades of action films, influencing everything from gadget-driven heroes to charismatic villains with elaborate layers. Even today, Goldfinger is widely regarded as one of the greatest spy films ever made, a template for franchise storytelling that balances spectacle with character. It didn't just entertain, it created a blueprint for cinematic cool that remains influential more than half a century later. The Night of the Iguana arrives in 1964 as a deeply atmospheric psychological drama that strips away spectacle and replaces it with emotional tension, human fragility, and spiritual unrest. Directed by John Huston and adapted from Tennessee Williams' acclaimed play, the film is set in a remote coastal hotel in Mexico where a group of broken and restless individuals find themselves emotionally and physically stranded. At the center is Reverend T. Lawrence Shannon, played by Richard Burton, a disgraced former clergyman who has been dismissed from his church due to scandal and is now working as a tour guide while battling inner turmoil, existential doubt, and emotional instability. Burton delivers a raw, volatile performance, portraying Shannon as a man constantly oscillating between charm, self-destruction, and desperate attempts at redemption. The narrative intensifies when a group of school teachers, led by the stern and morally rigid Miss Judith Fellows, confront Shannon's questionable behavior, pushing him toward a psychological breakdown that forces him to confront his own failures. Alongside him is Maxine Falk, played with sensual strength and weary resilience by Ava Gardner, a hotel owner who represents grounded survival in contrast to Shannon's spiritual chaos. Their dynamic becomes one of the film's emotional anchors, blending desire, dependency, and mutual exhaustion in a way that feels both intimate and unstable. The arrival of Hannah Jelks, portrayed by Deborah Kerr, introduces a quieter philosophical presence, offering compassion and emotional clarity that contrasts sharply with Shannon's turmoil and Maxine's hardened pragmatism. The film's setting becomes almost symbolic, with the decaying hotel perched above the ocean serving as a metaphor for emotional isolation and suspended existence. John Huston's direction emphasizes atmosphere over action, using long takes, humid landscapes, and natural tension to reflect the characters' internal struggles. The screenplay explores themes of repression, spiritual crisis, human connection, and the search for meaning in a world that feels emotionally fragmented. Richard Burton's performance stands out as one of his most complex, capturing a man caught between collapse and survival. Ava Gardner brings grounded magnetism to her role, while Deborah Kerr offers emotional balance and philosophical depth. Upon release, the film was praised for its performances and mood-driven storytelling, earning multiple Academy Award nominations and solidifying its reputation as a powerful literary adaptation. In the broader context of 1964 cinema, The Night of the Iguana represents the darker, more introspective side of the Swinging Sixties, standing in stark contrast to the era's musicals, comedies, and spy adventures. It reflects a shift toward more psychological and adult-oriented storytelling, where emotional truth takes precedence over traditional narrative structure. Today, it is remembered as one of Tennessee Williams' most successful cinematic adaptations, capturing human vulnerability with honesty and intensity. Its final impression is not one of resolution, but of uneasy acceptance, a reminder that some emotional journeys do not end neatly, but continue long after the screen fades to black.
The Swinging Sixties were more than just a decade. They were a cinematic revolution in motion. Every frame reflected a world shifting between tradition and modern chaos. From beachside youth fantasies to Cold War paranoia, cinema reinvented itself in real time. Music, rebellion, glamour, and satire all collided to reshape storytelling forever. These films didn't just define an era, they broke the rules of what movies could be. Even today, their influence echoes through every modern blockbuster and indie film alike. What began as experimentation became the foundation of modern cinematic language. And these 1963-1964 classics remain forever locked in film history as pure cultural fire.
Intensity. Its final impression is not one of resolution, but of uneasy acceptance. A reminder that some emotional journeys do not end neatly, but continue long after the screen fades to black.
The Swinging Sixties were more than just a decade. They were a cinematic revolution in motion. Every frame reflected a world shifting between tradition and modern chaos. From beachside youth fantasies to Cold War paranoia, cinema reinvented itself in real time. Music, rebellion, glamour, and satire all collided to reshape storytelling forever. These films didn't just define an era, they broke the rules of what movies could be. Even today, their influence echoes through every modern blockbuster and indie film alike. What began as experimentation became the foundation of modern cinematic language. And these 1963-1964 classics remain forever locked in film history as pure cultural fire. Through every modern blockbuster and indie film alike, what began as experimentation became the foundation of modern cinematic language. And these 1963-1964 classics remain forever locked in film history as pure cultural fire.